Beige is the new gray, apparently, though it feels like gray was just the new beige. But what was beige before that? Was it a joyous land of color that we somehow abandoned? Or did people in the 1970s also get told to rip up their avocado green shag carpet if they wanted to sell their house? Well, I'm moving, and that means I'm also currently working my way through planning out a new house full of decor. And it feels like half the paint colors are neutral, while they only have a smattering of well thought out colors. It feels like it's been that way for an eternity. Yet, even when the interior designers declare color is in, when year after year we watch for Pantone, Le Creuset, and KitchenAid to announce their newest tones with bated breath, only to be disappointed by dirt brown, beige and gray are still everywhere. But go back only a few decades, and it feels like those colorful options were not just out in stores, they were in our houses. Bathrooms and kitchens in pastels, metallic wallpapers, floral sofas, warm woods, and paint in colors so strong, I'm pretty sure they glow in the dark. We can't imagine the 1970s or the 1950s without their iconic color schemes. So, what happened? Well, not surprisingly, a lot more than just interior design trends happened in order to shift our path towards a colorless void. First, though, we're going to look into how previous decades viewed the all-neutral color scheme and see where exactly it started creeping in. I can't imagine selling a Victorian on the idea of a restoration hardware living room, no matter how much I might tell them it's the fashion, after all. And honestly, it's really difficult to choose the right colors for your home, just like it's really difficult to choose the right fragrance. That's why I'm so happy that the sponsor for today's video is Scentbird. Finding the perfect fragrance is just like finding the perfect colors for your house or your wardrobe. It has to fit your personality, feel effortless, and most importantly, make a lasting impression. But committing to a full-sized bottle, that can be tricky, especially when there are so many amazing scents out there. That's why I love experimenting with different fragrances to match my mood, the season, or even my outfit. And recently I've been diving into something that makes discovering new scents incredibly fun and accessible. So let me show you what I've been loving lately. My absolute favorite so far has been Sudete by Perfumology.
Hello. That's so bougie hotel.
It is.
That's so bougie hotel.
It is. The heavier woodsy sandalwood balanced by white tea, while there's a sweetness that is provided by both the jasmine and the lychee without being too floral or too overpoweringly sweet. If I want something a little stronger and spicier, I've been relying on Mountain Memories by Rhone. It's very earthy and warm and almost spicy. Now, if you're like me and you like exploring different fragrances without committing to full-size bottles, this is where Scentbird comes in. You can try your first fragrance for just $8 using my code Rudolph, which is way more affordable than splurging on a $300 bottle that you might not even love. You get to curate your own fragrance collection, swapping scents every month based on your mood, the season, or even what type of outfits you're into. There are over 700 designer and niche fragrances, including luxury brands like Prada, Versace, and unique finds from Parfum de Marly and Roja. And this is small enough to toss into my purse or my luggage for the day out or a trip, and you don't have to worry about lugging around a full bottle. And if you want to try Scentbird for yourself, you can use my code Rudolph or click the link below to get 55% off your first month. That means you can snag your first fragrance for just $8, which is an absolute steal. Let me know in the comments what's your go-to scent, or if you're looking for your signature fragrance. I'd love to hear. Thanks again to Scentbird for sponsoring today's video. We don't need to go too far back to find some scathing Victorian opinions on neutral home decor. 1894 alone brings us an article on color in house interiors that opens with, "We all recognize color as a source of enjoyment, but few of us consider how very much it has to do with our real happiness. The difference in the enjoyment of a bright June day and a dull November one is principally a difference in color. Without color, there would be no natural beauty, only a ghostly world all in white." The author goes on to say, gray, the gray composed of black and white, would be a wet blanket to all bubble of wit or spring of fancy. That was from Harper's Bazaar, by the way. So what did it take to wrest us from our wallpapered maximalist interiors? Well, just a little bit of technology. In the 19-teens, new chemical variations made paint easier to apply and care for. They no longer needed to be perfectly applied due to their oil-based shine or wiped down with turpentine to clean them. Now painted walls, or even stenciled ones, could bring an ever-changing range of color into regular homes. At the same time, there was a push to get people into homes that they owned, rather than rented spaces or apartments. One of the famous results of this are, of course, the Sears houses. Straight out of a catalog, and even the equivalent of an IKEA build-it-yourself home came with the intention of colorful walls. Not only did the house itself come with your choice of an exterior paint color, enough to paint 3 whole coats, but Sears had an entirely separate catalog with Cerakote paints for the interior and anything else you might want drenched in color. There was a very limited range of colors, which of course included the equivalent of beige, but plenty of vibrant options as well. More importantly, Sears and other catalog house sellers advertised having access to a designer or consultant to help decide on every element of the design, including color. Many articles in the 19-teens and 20s don't talk about specific color schemes so much as how to balance a house full of them. Make sure that they complement, but don't use the same color everywhere, as that can become tiresome. Choose cooler colors for south-facing rooms, warmer colors for north, darker tones on the floor, and lighter tones on the ceiling, etc. Though they mention a full range of colors and where they are best suited or what might change the emotional feel of the room, they never suggest a colorless house. Neutral isn't seen as the standard, the basic, or even the way out if you don't know what you're doing with color just yet. Plenty of catalogs, magazines, books, and even free interior design services are there to guide the homeowner through the thoughtful use of color. Beige and gray in all of their derivatives were certainly found extensively in the early 20th century interior design, just usually paired with pops of color like violet and jade green, or blue and rose. There is one minor exception to the expectation of color that I found in a 1923 article on decorating to sell the home. He does acknowledge that a pleasant neutrality should be the aim, as the builder doesn't know what the furniture will be, but that they should still avoid lifelessness. That means northern rooms in cream, buff, and tan, southern rooms in blues, greens, and grays. But don't go too bland. The interior treatment of homes built for the open market is apt to be a little too standard in treatment. The houses may sell because there is a current demand, but they won't command a price or start a reputation for the builder. Of course, this is all aimed at builders, not homeowners. Color trends go in and out over the following decades, moving from bright homes during the height of the 1930s Depression to more muted pastels at the end of that decade. Their recommended, quote, beige scheme included bold furniture colors or at least rich browns and trellis wallpaper with green tones. And while the 1940s did see trends for white or off-white walls, it was, again, a way to set off the tones of the woodwork or the colorful decor. A white bedroom with pink silk curtains, or a living room of accents of fuchsia and turquoise. A white dining room with multicolored chintz blinds and yellow lampshades. By the 1950s, they were recommending to be bold with the color in your home. Entire rooms of pink, green, blue, or yellow burst from the pages of magazines. They truly were masters of color drenching. Not even the kitchen or bathroom was safe. Well, I'm sure there were quite a few neutral interiors then as well. Finding a mint green tile or rose pink fridge made a colorful home easy to accomplish. The economy was good, for the most part, and home decor was relatively affordable and replaceable. Time to be bold. Despite this, though, there apparently was a widespread trend for beige carpet in the early 1960s. It doesn't seem to speak to the overall decor being neutral, however, as even a 1965 article titled "Neutrals in Home Decor" recommends neutrals as a way to tie color together, saying gray is a versatile neutral that works well with yellow, burnt orange, and violet, for example. Hardly a colorless void in that room. And my favorite commentary on the beige interior actually comes from 1964. Live in a mushroom soup world if that's what you really like. But if you choose it only because you're timid about color, read on. Maybe there was something else at play here then. Turns out, nylon carpet, though it had been around for over a decade, saw a drop in price near the end of the 1950s that rendered it a much more achievable option. And it was advertised as being far more resilient and long-lasting than the wool options that had been common. More on that in my last video on synthetics if you're interested. But it does seem like a good time to choose colors wisely, if not safely. After all, the walls are easy to repaint, the sofa can be recovered, so color isn't too hard to find. And my mother, recalling buying a sofa and some new flooring in the early 1970s, pointed out that they were offered a full professional design service from the store with that purchase. She chose not to put up the gold and orange geometric wallpaper the designer recommended, by the way. So neutral walls may have found their place in newly built homes as of the 1920s, and neutral carpets may have been the response to the synthetic longevity in the 1960s. But what about the upholstery, the furniture, the appliances? Well, at least in the case of the appliances, the turn seems to have happened in the late 1980s. By 1985, trend colors for the kitchen were starting to fail, even when the colors of the year were neutrals. Consumers increasingly stuck to almond and white over the coming years, that is, until stainless steel swept it all away in the early 2000s. Supposedly, this happened at least in part because of the open floor plans that brought the kitchen into the rest of the home, complicating color schemes. Which may give us a little bit of insight to what happened to the rest of our color. As for furniture, neutrals were always an option. Their popularity seemed to rise and fall with the economy, prices of furniture, and even how aggressive the color trends were. It was constantly the fallback for the undecided or the investor. Yes, as the anxiety surrounded Y2K and the tech failures passed us by, supposedly driving consumers to choose long-term practical investment options, beige was a popular choice. But it was only an option, not the only option. It would be another trendy style that would finally turn the entire house, furniture, and all neutral, taking our store selection with it. And it came from Belgium. Axel Verwoerd introduced the style in Architectural Digest in 2002, mixing antiques and modern with a weathered, pale look. Lots of undyed Belgian linen, unstained wood, raw metal, and off-white walls. It slowly moved through wealthy homes before finding its way to more mainstream decor around 2007. Again, tying in really well with the height of open floor plan building, the fact that you can see every room from any room. But it was in 2009 that full neutral was really brought into homes across the US. Restoration Hardware was going through massive restructuring after the housing bubble popped and they were left with falling sales. That year, they partnered with Bobo to bring a new, much more expensive line of furniture and decor to their stores. It was now a curated mix of antiques, recycled woods, and art pieces at prices that were clearly meant to pull them out of the typical home decor company range. I actually remember this happening as my mother and I regularly perused the Restoration Hardware store in Indianapolis for decor ideas, and were shocked to find it void of all color and personality literally overnight. The store associate insisted that their clientele preferred it this way, but really they were just desperately looking for an entire new range of customers. Ones that were wealthy enough that this flagged as trendy and classy, and had the money to completely redo their room or house entirely colorless. It wasn't exactly something you could slowly bring into your previous style and have it be effective. To be able to afford that much brand new furniture and to keep that place looking clean, natural linen is not exactly pet or child friendly, was definitely a not so humble brag. It didn't take long for the successful trend to be adapted by the other companies at a lower price point. even though they all tried to find their own take on it. Pottery Barn loved the nautical or seaside blue accents and at least offered up some darker woods to warm it up. The blank box ideal stuck. It was just easier to design your whole house as one. And stores loved that they could offer a very limited selection of color options that they knew would sell. Customers loved that they could buy without concern over what trends would be like in 3, 5, or even 10 years. Unstable economy and, frankly, creative exhaustion, and really boring and mundane houses, left us feeling bland and buying bland. This specific desaturation sits squarely between the beige and gray eras, between safety and perpetual trend. But something pulled us from the warm-leaning side to the cold. While this happened, going from eggshell and almond kitchens to gray fake hardwood floors. My theory is that our lighting changed. Stores moved from warm incandescent lights to cold LED. Daylight bulbs were pushed as the new option for homes that wanted to look fresh, clean, and natural. But beige looks dingy under cold, harsh light. And after years of beige homes that didn't have a refresh because style didn't require it, they honestly probably were a little dingy. Gray looked good in cold-lit stores, in houses with daylight bulbs, and big windows with increasingly open floor plans. Now, supposedly, we're headed back to beige. Gray is too clinical and cold, they say. Well, we're also pushing back against bright overhead lights, and words like cozy are replacing fresh for inspiration. Ironically, the alternate neutral right now seems to be sage green, transitioning from millennial gray, which, by the way, that generation wasn't even the ones buying homes when gray took hold around 2010. Most were just graduating and way too broke for that. But apparently a soft neutral green is nothing new. The number of references I found throughout the entire 20th century that suggested the same thing as an alternative to regular neutrals was frankly hilarious. We're definitely not being creative with that one. All in all, it's no surprise that neutrals have persisted. The economy doesn't support most of us buying trendy colors of furniture right now, and that's been on a rocky downward slope for almost 20 years. Granted, decorating how you like rather than what's trendy is also somehow trendy, so who knows how that will affect the market in the coming years. As for me, I like color in my house. I like wallpaper and patterns, and there's going to be a lot of fun decisions to be made coming up very shortly, so be sure to follow along and subscribe. In the meantime, I'm just going to sit around with my paint swatches and daydream in Technicolor.
Hello. Hi, Nicole's audience / my audience / Nicole's audience.
It's all the same audience.
We have.
Yeah. Are you gonna leave? No. Okay.